Hello friends. Since the beginning of this year, after China's second-largest real estate group, Evergrande Group declared its inability to repay its debts, thousands of articles from foreign media have provided analysis to prove Beijing's economy will soon collapse. They have grounds for saying so, because China's recent situation has similarities with some of the great crises of the United States in the past. However, if we dig a little deeper, we will have a different view. China does not easily fall into a crisis like the United States. Why is that? Let's find out together. Since the 1990s, China has entered a period of miraculous economic growth, with an average growth rate of more than 10%. By 2009, they beat the United States and became the largest producer in the world. Business activities boomed. Many people become entrepreneurs and become rich. Confidence in the possibility of success always outweighs the fear of bankruptcy. Therefore, from bankers to investors, they are overly optimistic. Banks are actively lending, and people are happy, borrowing as much as possible. Up to now, the total amount of money that Chinese financial institutions have lent has reached a terrible figure, with $51.870 billion, or 341% of GDP. A large part of that is used by investors to buy real estate, speculating to make a profit when prices rise. As more people join, i.e. demand increases, so does real estate prices. As a result, by 2020, major Chinese cities like Shenzhen and Shanghai will become 4 times more expensive than New York in the United States. However, any movement has an end. Economic growth and people's income cannot keep up with the excessive increase in real estate prices. At a certain point, namely the present, housing prices in many Chinese cities have far exceeded the average income of the people. Combined with the slowing economic situation, they tend to reduce investment in the real estate market. That causes the price to gradually return to its true value. At that time, many banks and financial institutions will be at risk, because most mortgages to borrow money are real estate. When the price falls to a level that exceeds the amount borrowed by the investor, the system collapses. For example, Mr. A has a plot of land worth $42,000, which he uses as collateral. The bank gave him a loan of $38,000 in 2019. By 2020, land prices have dropped dramatically by 20%. Mr. A's $42,000 worth of land was then only $33,000. Now, even if he had $38,000 to pay the bank, he wouldn't pay it, because it could buy more land than he had mortgaged. As a result, the bank took his land to liquidate and suffered a loss of $5,000. When there are many loans like Mr. A, the bank will definitely go bankrupt. This is known as collateral permissiveness, or subprime lending. Recently, 2 rural banks in China, Liaoyang and Taizhi Liaoning, have declared bankruptcy. Dozens of other financial institutions are also struggling, with mortgage losses totaling $350 billion. When this happened, people with deposits at the bank began to panic. They raced to withdraw the deposited money. For any financial institution, returning all deposits to customers means bankruptcy. This is the current situation in China. Dozens of banks are facing collapse, very similar to the Great Depression of the United States in the 1930s and 2008. So what did they do about it? First, let's take a look at the most recent economic crisis in the United States, 2008. Before it happened, similar to China's situation today, subprime banks were running short of money. Because customers raced to withdraw all the deposited money, the Federal Reserve initially watched with folded arms. Partly because they misjudged the situation, partly because most banks in the US are privately owned. When they make a mistake and crash is normal. As a result, small banks went bankrupt one by one. Payment operations in many places were disrupted. Loans to investors are gone, leaving the economy in many areas as dark as a power outage. The silence of the Fed then led to the bankruptcy of the 4th largest bank in the United States, Lehman Brothers. Millions of people have lost their jobs and economic activities have been disrupted. Finally, the Fed also realized in time, providing capital to banks with similar circumstances. Help them pay customers who want to withdraw money, avoiding the collapse of the whole system. The delay has taken the US economy up to 10 years to recover. Now, let's see the Chinese solution. Quite simply, they have learned from the United States in 2 crises. As soon as it discovered the unstable situation in the second quarter of this year, the People's Bank of China immediately lowered interest rates and provided capital to troubled branches, helping them pay timely customers who were panicking. Be afraid. This is normal, as most Chinese banks are state-owned. They must be accountable to their affiliates. In addition, the assertiveness of the Beijing government also comes from another reason. They have pretty well controlled inflation over the years. They are not afraid that increasing the money supply for banks will worsen the situation. China is not like the US Federal Reserve. Each time, it has to weigh carefully for fear of rising inflation. However, this does not mean that the Chinese economy is developing normally. They face a lot of difficulties because of the following reasons. Firstly, the tight control of the COVID epidemic has led to disruptions in many production and service activities. At the same time, causing dissatisfaction of some sections of the population, sparking small-scale protests, causing social disturbance. Second, the real estate sector, which accounts for about 22 to 29% of China's GDP, is showing signs of decline. New apartments continued to be built, but the number of buyers decreased. The reason is that the average price has far exceeded the income of an ordinary citizen. Meanwhile, the overall economic situation is faltering over the past decade, making investors nervous. According to research by Professor Kenneth Raghav at Harvard University and Dr. Yuanqin Yang, an expert in the International Monetary Fund, about 20% of China's newly built apartments are vacant. That leaves many real estate companies in debt and forced to rely on government venture capital. Third, China is the #1 exporter in the world. And now, the major global economies, their leading partners, are slowing down because of inflation, due to rising food and energy prices. As a result, in November 2022, their exports unexpectedly fell by 8.7% and are expected to be weaker this December. However, if compared with the US and Europe, China currently has a relatively low inflation rate of about 2.1%. And despite the current difficulties, the International Monetary Fund forecasts, their economy will still grow by about 3.3% this year. That's not a bad sign for many countries. Because once China or the US has a crisis, the whole world will be shaken. Video ends here. Thank you all for watching and liking it. If you find the video useful, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. Goodbye and see you again.